Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. The London series is in the books. There was some good, there was some bad, and ultimately it was a really entertaining series. So we'll talk about not only why it was solid for the Phillies, but great for baseball. It just was. On top of that, are there any major issues facing the Phils right now? We have an off day, so time to kind of take stock of where we're at. And congratulations are in order for Jayson Werth, but we kind of have to question something that he said over the weekend as well. A weird thing we'll get into on today's episode of Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm Connor Thomas, your host. Thank you so much for checking us out. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that stuff that really helps us out here on Locked On Phillies. I'd really appreciate it if you do that. If you haven't already, if you enjoyed the content, that's the number one way you could say, basically, thank you for the content. It really helps us out here on Locked On Phillies. So appreciate that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. The Phillies are back from London. Well, not technically. They go to Boston for a 3-game series that starts tomorrow night, but they've flown back or they're in the air right now, depending on what their flight schedule was. Obviously, a bit of a long flight coming back from across the pond, their longest road trip of the year. And there was some good and there was some bad and there was some largely overall good for baseball. Let's start with the good. Then we'll talk about the bad, and then we'll get into the good overall for baseball, right? So first, as far as the good is concerned for the Philadelphia Phillies, they won game 1 of the series. That's great. They looked pretty dominant over the Mets in game 1. Bryce Harper goes yard. Nick Castellanos goes yard. Missing somebody. Did Edmundo Sosa go yard in that game? Trying to remember who the third person was that went yard. Bottom line, the Philadelphia Phillies looked really darn good in game 1, and Ranger Suarez looked really darn good again. He's got 10 wins on the year. His hand did not look like it was bothering him too much at all. It wasn't his best lockdown performance, but Suarez is healthy. The Phillies can still hit. Everything kind of looked really good in game 1. The bullpen looked solid. Perfect. It was a great first game in London. The Phils won. It was never really in too much of a doubt, and they looked very comfortable at the dish. I don't know any more positives to say from game 1. That was pretty as open and shut of a game as the Philadelphia Phillies have had all year. Simply, it's not their biggest blowout victory or anything like that, but if you watch Saturday's game in 1:10, middle of the day, maybe you had something going on, so you might have missed it, but it was just kind of like, oh, okay. Yeah, this team is just way better than the Mets. Nothing to worry about. So that's the good. There is some good to take out of Sunday as well. I don't think there's really any bad to take out of Saturday's game. Phillies were pretty comfortably in control the whole time. Sunday, the good to take out of it. Taijuan Walker looked as good as he's looked in over a month. He looked awesome in his start. Now, does he still have a level above that? Probably, but he was locating his splitter lower. His four-seam velocity was not up, but he was still spotting that much better, and he seemed to be really picking apart the Mets hitters, had a good number of strikeouts. He ends up getting kind of screwed out of a W because of the bullpen, and we'll get into that when we talk about the bad part of the equation here. But Taijuan Walker looked really good, and someone else who looked really good too. This is going to be interesting for the Philadelphia Phillies. We're going to discuss this in the second segment because part of the are there any major issues facing the Phillies conversation is, are there any changes that need to be made? Are there any potential decisions by the organization and the manager that need to be made in the near future? David Dahl might be making them make one of those changes. Like David Dahl, a pinch hit home run. He's been awesome since coming up for the Philadelphia Phillies. He was an all-star with the Rockies. I bring it up every time I talk about him. The reason he hasn't had success at the major league level or really hasn't played too much at the major league level since being an all-star is because of injuries. He can't stay healthy. But in a significantly lesser role with a very, very good team, there might be a chance you could keep him healthy. And then is he a major beneficial asset? I'll tell you what, as good as the Phillies have been this year, I can't tell you the last time I saw them have a big like pinch hit home run like that. They are not that good pinch hitting. They've got guys that like, if they start, they're awesome. If they pinch hit, they can't hit the broadside of a barn. And I'm not blaming anybody because pinch hitting is one of the hardest things to do in any sport. Could you imagine, right? Like, I don't know. I'm just trying to think, for instance, you haven't played a whole NBA game, like not a single minute. And then in one of the biggest moments of the fourth quarter, you're put in the game for the first time. You don't get to really warm up or anything. You don't get to take any practice shots at halftime. No, all you do is you step out on the court in a huge moment and they throw you the ball immediately and say, knock down this like 35-foot three-pointer or you stink. Like that's kind of what pinch hitting is. And some guys are really good at it because they can put themselves mentally in those positions. Some guys are not. And the Phillies haven't had much success. So to see David Dahl do that certainly goes in the good category. So I'd say that covers the good from the London series. I really, really liked what I saw from a lot of what the Phillies did over there. There's really only one thing I didn't like, and it was the bullpen on game 2. That's it. Gregory Soto goes out there. I know people are going to critique Rob Thompson's decision to go to Gregory Soto in that spot. 2 runners on. Taijuan Walker had stayed out of trouble basically to that point. You needed an out. Gregory Soto was not able to get it without giving up 3 runs. 2 of those charged to Taijuan Walker. So, yeah, he was bad. Was it the proper decision by Rob Thompson to go to Gregory Soto? I don't think so. I don't think it was. I think you had other pitchers you could have gone through in that spot. I don't think Gregory Soto has been very good since coming here from Detroit. I think he has a much higher ceiling. I don't know what his deal is, but mentally he's just not been – I do think it's a mental thing because it's command. His stuff is still good. He still throws 100. Like, he's got movement. He just doesn't seem to be – and remember where you got him from. You got him from Detroit. It's the only other place he ever played in the majors. They weren't exactly playing high-leverage baseball. Some guys are not good high-leverage players. Maybe Greg Soto is one of those guys. What I will say, for Rob Thompson's credit, is, and it's not, oh, well, we didn't have guys available. They had 2 days off before the London series. They have a day off. That's 3 in 5 days. Everybody's rested. Everybody's available. Everybody should have been able to throw. But Matt Strahm, Jeff Hoffman, and Jose Alvarado all also threw in that game. So it's not like he was not using those guys. I think he was just in a spot where he was kind of caught in between. You weren't technically in a high leverage inning yet because it was the middle of the game and you held a 3-0 advantage. You wanted to save guys in case it got tighter for tighter situations. And you believe that Gregory Soto can go out there and not implode. So there's a thought process as to why Rob Thompson went to Greg Soto in that spot. Would I have gone to somebody else? I might have gone to Jose Ruiz. Yeah. I'm trying to think of where else you would. Like, I don't know. Bullpen stuff is so tricky, right? Because you go to Jose Ruiz, and it's a guy without as much experience this year. Some of the guys in the bullpen, if he blows up, it's like, what are you doing? You go to Matt Strahm early. You're like, why are you using him in that spot? He ends up not being as comfortable as he is when he gets a clean inning. And I know Strahm ended up coming in and closing it down. But my point is, so much reaction to bullpen moves is hindsight that managers do not have. He made a decision that he felt was best. I think at the moment, it was not the best decision. So you can question that. But I do think Rob Thompson's been very good this year at managing the bullpen, so I'm not going to kill him for it. That was mistake number 1. And then the only other bad thing, right, is Jose Alvarado. Jose Alvarado had a chance for a save. You're up 4-3, thanks to the David Dahl pinch hit homer. And you end up collapsing in the 9th and giving up 3 runs in the 9th inning. That's miserable effort by Jose Alvarado. And it's not because he's not a good pitcher, right? He just had a bad day. He's had a really good year. Well, he's had a really solid year. I can't tell. Maybe help me out in the comments on this. Your thoughts on Jose Alvarado so far this year. I can't tell if he's had kind of a down year for him, but I am perceiving it that way because Jeff Hoffman's been so good and Matt Strahm's been so good and Orion Kerkering's been so good that by comparison, he looks kind of pedestrian when really he's actually been really good as well. Or if that's kind of a proper evaluation where Jose Alvarado has not been as good as he's been in past years. But bottom line is he's still a great pitcher. I don't know if he's the everyday closer for this team, but I don't know if any of these guys are the everyday closers for this team. What I know is if you give the ball to Jose Alvarado with a 1-run lead in the ninth, I'm still going to feel good about it. Like if that happens in Boston tomorrow night, I'm not going to say, here we go again. Like I'm going to believe he's going to get out of it. So tough day to have a tough day. Sucks to lose a game to the Mets. Oh, and of course it sucks the way that the game ended with the ground ball 2 feet in front of the plate. That, man, the Mets made an unbelievable play on the Casty 2-3 on like 2-3 double play to end it in a huge spot is crazy to witness. Like that was kind of awesome. That was just good for baseball. All of it was. The Bryce Harper knee slide celebration after the home run, the tight game 2. Honestly, a really good game. There were so many things that were good for baseball because it was interesting and competitive and the players showed their personality. And you saw some good, you saw some bad, you saw some ugly. That's the sport of baseball. That's how you're going to always consume it. But ultimately, when you leave that London series, the memories are going to be Bryce Harper knee slide, bullpen implodes game 2, David Dahl pinch hit home run. And I don't know, fun baseball with a lot of fun stuff built around it. I thought it was well done by Major League Baseball besides the broadcast. Yeah, those broadcasts were not great. But I don't know. It's just another series for the Philadelphia Phillies. We move on. You try and take out the Red Sox. The Red Sox are 500. You'll play them tomorrow. We'll do everything's free, a full preview of the Red Sox series on tomorrow's episode. But coming up next, we're going to kind of build on some of those concerns a little bit that we were just highlighting there in the bad part of the London trip or the bad part of the performance on the London trip. Are there any major issues facing the Philadelphia Phillies right now? We have the luxury of kind of talking through that with a day off. So we'll discuss that as we continue today's episode. First, though, let's talk about Supply House. You can get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. You can shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. You need help with an order? Well, you can get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business. And you can talk to a real person every single time. That's so much better than getting a machine or recording. No, real person, real help, exceptional service. Pros in the skilled trades can also get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, makes it even easier to get a hold of them, free shipping, and discounts on every order. So join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM. TM as in Trade Master, and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. I also want to tell you about our title sponsor, FanDuel. It's a great time of year to be betting with FanDuel. You absolutely have to check them out. Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, and more, much, much more. You can bet it all on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet everything from the Finals MVP. Right now, it's looking like it's going to be somebody on Boston, unfortunately, to who's going to hit one out of the park. Could have bet Harp, could have bet Dahl, could have bet Casty in game 1, could have bet a bunch of these guys. There's a lot of money to be made out there, folks, and you know how to do it. So go ahead and check out FanDuel. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, time to talk about some potential issues facing the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, on the side, if you're not watching on YouTube, there's like a little rundown on the left side of the screen that shows you what I'm planning on getting into every episode, a little roadmap for where we're going. And the question for this segment is, are there any major issues facing the Phils? The short answer to that is no. There are no major issues facing this team. They're still the best team in baseball. They have the best winning percentage in baseball after the Yankees struggled with the Dodgers over the weekend. The Philadelphia Phillies are the consensus best team in the latest power rankings. They're the best team in baseball. They're playing at an unbelievable clip. They're not going to win every game, but they are comfortably still winning or splitting series. Like, they are a very darn good baseball team with not many flaws and not many issues. So major issues? No, there are no major issues right now with this team. Minor issues. Yes, there are a couple, and most of them are not so much like, ooh, we have a problem. It's we have a decision to make, and we have an opportunity to cause a problem if we don't make the right decision. That's kind of where the Philadelphia Phillies are at. So a lot of this is going to fall on Dave Dombrowski and Rob Thompson, what we talk about here, and how they handle the team and take care of all of that business. The first thing that's kind of tricky is the Trey Turner return from injury, which is coming soon, right? I don't know when specifically. It's going to be sometime in the middle of June, it sounds like, per reports. You're going to need to send somebody down. What do you do in that situation? Does David Dahl not stay on the roster? Like, do you do something there and move a guy that's been red hot? What do you do with Edmundo Sosa, who has been playing unbelievably well since taking over for Trey Turner, or taking a bigger role with the Trey Turner injury? Managing that and trying to keep two hot players on the roster and in the lineup is going to be tough to do. What I will say is Trey Turner's better than both those guys, even when they're hot. Like, you want to keep the hot players in the lineup, but ultimately Trey Turner has the highest ceiling, and it's not close, of those three players. I don't think I'm breaking any news by saying that, but people may forget, having seen how hot Edmundo Sosa and how hot David Dahl have been recently. So that's kind of a simple fix. Play Turner at shortstop, try and find ways for Sosa to play, and you can figure it out. Another issue that's potentially facing the Philadelphia Phillies, there's been a lot of talk about the outfield. Lack of production you're getting, potential changes to be made, trade deadline acquisitions, all of that stuff has come up. Here's what I'll say. Still got to wait till the trade deadline, so you're going to have more data to figure it out. A change is not coming in right field. Nick Castellanos is going to be out there. I know people got mad at him for that double play ground ball to end the game. He's been on a tear recently. It's not really making his overall numbers look great because he had such a bad start to the season, but he's been playing good baseball. He's been hitting the ball well. I have no issues with Nick Castellanos in right field over the past week or so. Just not worried about it. I know people don't like his approach and the way he's a free swinger like that. Okay, well, it's not a concern yet. But what is a concern is guys like Rojas and Pache, and Marsh hasn't been playing. But Marsh, when you look at what you're going to do to add production at those spots in the outfield, it may have to be a trade. That's something the Philadelphia Phillies are going to have to look at. We will, as we draw closer to the trade deadline, not quite yet because we got time, but we are going to start to discuss some more rumors and potential trade deadline acquisition targets to talk about. Right now, that's more of a keep an eye on it. And the bullpen is the one other thing, right? The bullpen you look at and you say, are there guys that we trust in here? How many? Obviously, trust Strom, should be an all-star this year. Obviously, trust Hoffman. Obviously, you should trust Alvarado. If you don't, I get it after his last performance, but overall, you should trust him. Kerkering's coming into his own. That's four guys that you can trust in high leverage spots. Ultimately, that should be good enough to get you where you need to go for now. But would you like to add somebody? Absolutely. And the Phillies can do that at the deadline. So that's another, keep an eye on it and see who works. Is Seranthony Dominguez going to figure his stuff out? Gregory Soto going to figure his stuff out? Is Jose Ruiz here to stay? These are all questions for guys that you're going to have to keep an eye on. But the one other thing, as far as issues facing the Phils that I worry about, is just sustainability. That remains the question. They haven't really shown signs of slowing down, but if you pay kind of attention to the trends recently, the offense has been not overly productive. They haven't really had a blowout win. I know I said Saturday was comfortable. They haven't really hung a bunch of runs on somebody or done that for a series for, 2-3 weeks now at this point. I'd like to see that version of the Phillies again, because if the offense starts to cool off, eventually the pitching is going to regret. They're not going to have four guys in the top 6 of National League ERA. That's not going to continue forever. So I do wonder if they're looking at the offense a little bit saying, okay, we got to kind of retune the approach. I don't know. I wouldn't change too much about this team right now because they're still winning. But those are just the things that I'm kind of like, okay, I'm keeping a side eye on. I told you, no major issues, no problems right now with this team, but some things that you want to keep tabs on just so you know what's going on. So that's kind of the overview of where the Phillies are at right now, what they did in London, all that great stuff. We've covered a lot of it, and they don't play tonight, so we're going to preview the Red Sox series up at Fenway that starts tomorrow on tomorrow's episode. I guess we got something else to get into. This is a very interesting conversation because, my goodness, Jayson Werth, congratulations are in order. I'll tell you why if you're not aware. And also, one of the weirder things that I've ever heard a baseball player say or a former baseball player say as we wrap up today's episode. All right, let's talk about my friends over at LinkedIn because they are going to help you if you're struggling to close deals. B2B selling is tougher than ever. Trust me, I've done a lot of sales before I got into sports talk. I know how hard it is in a bunch of different aspects. And that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn's Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers so you're not wasting your time on someone who's not interested. Surface key signals such as like job changes or which accounts you should prioritize to help you make it the most efficient way possible to attack your sales, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert into sales. It's fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform. Think about all the data you can get from 1 billion people and everything you can learn from that to help you prospect who's going to be your targets to make a sale. Well, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the people that matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/locked-on. That's linkedin.com/locked-on for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/locked-on and you can get started. So over the weekend, the Belmont Stakes, right? That's what it is? Yeah, the Belmont Stakes. I'm pretty sure. I'm not a horse racing guy. I watched the Kentucky Derby. I think the Preakness is just called the Preakness. So, yeah, I think the Belmont Stakes is the Belmont Stakes. Anyway, that was probably the dumbest 5 seconds of this podcast in its history. Jayson Werth owns a horse named Dornoch. He was running in the Kentucky Derby. He was running in the Belmont this weekend. And kind of wild to just see, like, a guy that was a former player for the Phillies own a horse and be wearing these weird suits and weird hats and everything like that. And he did not win the Kentucky Derby. Dornoch did not. But credit to Jayson Werth, man. The guy just knows how to win, whether it's horse racing or baseball. His horse won the Belmont Stakes, one of the 3 legs of the Triple Crown this weekend. That is a major accomplishment, an insane accomplishment in the world of horse racing. And congratulations, but also, are you good, bro? Because Jayson Werth said that winning the Belmont Stakes, a race that he didn't run in, his horse ran in. So I guess he bought the horse and the horse was fast. Like, I'm absolutely sure there's more to it than that. So I don't want big horse racing to get mad at me in the comments. But he said that this was better than winning the World Series. I'm like, dude, actually? Like, is that actually a thing that you said and believe and feel? And I don't know, man. Like I've told you, I'm not really in on the horse racing scene. So I don't know how the two compare. It's a smaller group that goes into creating a championship like that. Maybe it's like harder to win the Belmont Stakes than it is to win the World Series. Like, I don't know how those two things compare. I don't know how they would compare emotionally or the amount of work you put in. I do know how hard it is to win the World Series. I do know he was a big part of the World Series win here in 2008. And for him to say that this was bigger than him winning the World Series kind of hurt me a little bit. Like, that doesn't really sound right, especially while in London, you saw guys like Chase Utley and Jimmy Rollins and Ryan Howard and Carlos Ruiz and Shane Victorino and Cole Hamels all kind of hanging out and shooting the breeze and catching up and everything and knowing how much that meant to so many people. So horse race takes priority over the World Series championship. okay, but who am I to tell him which one? Like, he's just saying how he feels. So who am I to tell him that he's supposed to value one thing over the other? Just a very cool moment for Jayson Werth, a very cool moment for people who rooted for Jayson Werth as a baseball player, and also a holy bleep, we're getting old moment where he is now not only transitioned out of baseball, but bought a horse, set everything up, competed in the Kentucky Derby, and then went out and won the Belmont. This wasn't a quick turnaround from his baseball career. Like, we are old. If you watch Jayson Werth play baseball as an adult, you are now probably, I don't know, late 20s, early 30s, maybe later than that. If I don't want to wrap my head around it because I'm going to have an existential crisis, and that's not what this podcast is for. So we'll just end it with this. Congrats to Jayson Werth. Good to see a former Philly winning. Maybe next time come hang out with your teammates in London too, if you could find a way to make it. But that's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. It was a really fun weekend. Hopefully you enjoyed the recap of it through this episode. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the Boston series and get back to our typical stuff that has nothing to do with England and traveling abroad. A fun series upcoming. We'll break it all down and get into all of that. But one more time, I want to remind you. So we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for checking us out. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us here on Locked On Phillies. I appreciate that very much. And I will talk to you next time on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.